Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Taylor Comblouzier, a mining analyst here at Red Cloud Securities. Today's webinar focuses on Altaley Mining. Altaley is a Canadian-based company with two 100% owned Mexican gold, silver, and base metal mines. The Tahuehueto mine is located in northwestern Durango state, where it is currently in pre-production and is undergoing final construction and commissioning of a 1,000 ton per day facility capable of producing gold, silver, lead, and zinc concentrates. The company is targeting to reach the mine's design capacity of 1,000 tons per day near the end of 2022. Altaley also owns the Campo Morado Mine, which is an operating polymetallic base metal mine located in Guerrero State with mining and milling equipment currently processing at approximately over 2,000 tons per day and producing zinc, lead, and copper concentrates with gold, silver, and copper as byproducts. Campo Morado is currently estimated to be Mexico's sixth largest zinc producer. Today, I have with me on the webinar Ralph Shearing, who's the CEO, President, and Director at Altaley Mining. The format of today's webinar will be comprised of two parts. In the first part, Ralph will provide an update on Altaley, including a detailed update on the commissioning, pre-production, and construction progress at Tawato, along with an overview of the Campo Morado mine. In the second part, we'll take your questions live. So please send us your questions using the chat function, and we'll get to as many as we can. I'll note that you can type them in at any point throughout the webinar. To start, we'll handle the disclosures and then get into the presentation. So for Altaley Mining, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Altaley corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for Altaley Mining specific disclosures. So with that out of the way, I'll turn it over to Ralph, who will update you on Altaley and what you have to look forward to at the company.
Thank you, Taylor, and welcome everybody. So as Taylor says, I'm Ralph Shearing, President and CEO of Altaley Mining Corporation. So Altaley is kind of an interesting little story these days. We have two mines that are operating in Mexico. We have the polymetallic Campo Morado mine shown on the right-hand side of this image. And we have our Tahuehueto gold mine, which we're just in the process of commissioning pre-production, a 500 ton per day ball mill, increasing to 1,000 tons per day towards the end of this year. So we believe that Altaley is building Mexico's next mid-tier metals producer. Move on. This is the forward-looking statements. Taylor's already handled that, so we'll move on to show you locations of the properties. So our Tahuehueto project, it's really our flagship project, is located in northwestern Durango. This mine, we own it 100%. Pre-production and commissioning was initiated in May 13th, 2022. We have a revenue breakdown here. When this mine is fully in production, we should be producing about 65% of our revenue from gold, 14% from silver, and 21% from base metals. The mine has excellent exploration potential. We strongly believe that when we can get drilling going again, then we can expand this mine, maybe double it within 1 to 2 years, the size, and on a 2 to 5 year term, maybe triple the size of it, up to 2,000 or 3,000 tons per day. Campo Morado, currently the sixth largest zinc producer in Mexico, located in the state of Guerrero. This is a polymetallic mine, primarily zinc. We produce about 45 million pounds of zinc annually. We have a pathway here to increase production in the short term. We have been exploring metallurgical testing process improvements that we believe are going to be able to really increase the precious metal recoveries as well as the base metal recoveries. I'll talk a little bit about that further on into the presentation. And with the exploration potential here, very, very good as well. With the possibility of getting drills turning again, we may have a pathway to expand this project over a more long-term approach, say 5 years down the road, have enough information behind us to potentially double the size. We're currently producing around 2,500 tons per day on an average basis. So in 2021, and I'll stress that these figures are only from our Campo Morado mine, we had increased our gross revenues by 121% up to $98 million in 2021 from zinc sales and byproduct sales from Campo Morado. We had a mine operating profit of $34.2 million. These are Canadian figures. And we had an net income of $36 million. Now that seems a bit odd, but there was some accounting things that happened to get our net income up. And the majority of that was to recover the value of Campo Morado. It was impaired by the auditors in 2020. In 2021, we were able to bring it back on to the books. So that increased the net revenues. All of that brought us an earnings per share of 15 cents. So it was a pretty good year in 2021. And that's solely from Campo Morado. We expect to double those revenues once Tahuehueto ramps up to full production at 1,000 tons per day. So moving on, the board of directors. About a year ago, we attracted a very strong team of directors, a lot of talent here. Myself, I'm a professional geologist, exploration geologist, by the way. So the mining, although I've been learning a lot about mining over the past few years, we still have a lot of people in our organization that know more about mining than me. However, great team moving things forward. I'm as I said, professional geologist. I have over 35 years of mineral exploration and development experience, and I have 33 years of experience of managing public companies at a senior level. David Rhodes is our chairman. David is the managing director of Endeavour Financial. Endeavour is a financial team out of London. They've raised billions of dollars for mining companies in the past, and he's helping us as our chairman and a director. Mark Bailey, independent director. Mark was the founder of Mine Finders, a very active company in Mexico 10, 15 years ago. Currently retired, but he's on our board of directors and giving us lots of good advice. Tom Kelly, an underground mining engineer with over 40 years of worldwide mineral exploration industry experience, primarily underground mining. Great guy. He's working in Peru these days, but giving us a lot of advice moving forward. Natasha is a lawyer. Natasha's claim to fame was she was ranked one of the top 40 under 40 up and coming legal professionals in New York when she was working out of New York. She currently resides in Vancouver. Is on our board of directors, helping us with corporate governance and legal advice. Roberto Guzman is our major shareholder. Roberto is a real estate developer in Mexico and has been a loyal supporter of the company over the past 7 years. Helped us in every financing and continues to be an active board member and active funder for the company. Finally, Ruben Alvidrez. Ruben is a very well-established director. He comes from a very prominent mining family in Mexico. So Ruben's brother is the CEO of Fresnillo, and his father is now retired, but he was number 2 in Peñoles. So we have a lot of good experience in that family, and Ruben has effectively used his contacts with his family and throughout the mining industry to help us develop Tahuehueto, bring in contractors, find equipment. So Ruben's a very valuable guy on our board of directors, and we're working very closely together. Moving on, I'm going to show you a lot more about our Tahuehueto project. So this project, as I mentioned, has just started mill commissioning and pre-production. So we are producing concentrate. We've sold a few batches of concentrate now. We have more concentrate being moved to our buyer Trafigura over the coming days, and we're producing on a small scale basis on site daily. First ball mill in place, second ball mill will be installed in the next coming quarter. So we hope to be ramping this mine up to 1,000 tons per day, its design capacity, near the end of this year. This would be a production profile guidance. So this is from the pre-feasibility study. The yellow below is our gold production. The silver is obviously silver, and the base metals above. This, as I mentioned before, 65% of our revenue will be gold, 14% from silver, and the rest from base metals. Although this production profile shows the production going down in the later years of the mine life, there is no doubt in my mind that we will be able to maintain these upper levels throughout this 10.9-year mine life that we have, well into the future with getting drilling going again and increasing our resources and reserves. I believe that this mine will produce over a very long-term basis, and I'll show you why in a few slides. Moving on, this would be a project summary. So the property, it's about 7,400 hectares, almost 7,500 hectares, located in Durango. It's an epithermal vein system with breccias of gold, copper, lead, and zinc. We have proven and probable reserves about 3.6 million tons, grading 2.5 grams per ton gold. On a gold equivalent basis with all metals, it's just under 5 grams per ton. That contains about 365,000 ounces of gold, and on a gold equivalent basis, 613,000 ounces of gold equivalent. That's in the proven and probable reserves. That gives us a 10.9-year mine life. When you look at M&I resources, that's 6.3 million tons, which includes the reserves, 2.1 grams per ton gold. On a gold equivalent basis, it's 4.4 grams per ton gold equivalent. And that contains 425,000 ounces gold, and on a gold equivalent basis, 886,000 ounces of gold. If the M&I can be brought up to reserves, that would increase the mine life to 18 years. At 1,000 tons per day, we expect to produce 26,000 ounces of gold, and we expect on a gold equivalent basis to produce around 43,000 ounces of gold equivalent resources annually at the mine, 1,000 tons per day, at a very low production cost. This mine is very robust. The pre-feasibility study suggests that we'll be able to mine gold at $855 per gold equivalent ounce. So there's lots of room to make very good profits as we ramp up our production at Tahuehueto. This is the financial metrics based on a 1,000 ton per day pre-feasibility study released a couple of months ago. Post-net tax cash flow, $258 million. All-in sustaining costs, as I just mentioned, $855 per gold equivalent ounce. Post-tax net present value at a 10% discount, just under 132 million. That gives us a 65% internal rate of return, and that pays back in 2 years. The capital cost to build this mine were about $45 million. We believe it'll pay back in less than 2 years based on the pre-feasibility study. So we'll be paying back all of our debt. So all of this money is now sunk, or the vast majority in the construction, because this construction is essentially in the final stages. So as we bring in our revenues, we'll be able to pay down our debt very quickly. I'll show you the debt situation near the end of the presentation. Sorry. Not sure what's going on there, but it's just jumping. That slide wasn't that important anyway. So let's just move on to the Tahuehueto Mineralized District. So Tahuehueto is a district scale project. This district, as we know it right now, is about 12 kilometers long by 8 kilometers wide. Our concessions are outlined in blue. So we have this internal block of concessions here, and then our only competitor surrounds that internal block of concessions throughout this area in here. That only competitor is Fresnillo. And so we're hoping to discuss with them and potentially bring that ground into our property in the future. Now, this area with all the yellow and red lines represents an erosional window through overlying volcanic rocks. So all of this area over in here is covered by younger volcanics, as it is up in here. And this area has been exposed to a series of veins, vein structures, we call them. We have only drilled and explored at depth along this one major structure. It goes from Cinco de Mayo to Catorce up to Perdido, and then we couldn't drill it here because there's too much overlying cover, but we picked the zone up again on the other side of the hill, and it goes all the way down to this arroyo. From here to Cinco de Mayo is about 3.4 kilometers in length, so a large distance, and that's really the only structure we've extensively drilled. We've drilled a little bit here on El Rey. Some of that material is in our reserves and resources. And this Creston zone is really a part of the major structure. And that's where a lot of our ore is. And we get it over in Santiago zone. All of these other yellow lines, the only one we tested with 6 drill holes is this Tex Calama. We wanted to see what the mineralization looked like. And we drilled 6 holes, and it looks very similar to what we see along our major structure that we've drilled extensively. All of these other yellow lines represent structures, that veins we know are there. We see them on surface. They need to be followed up and drilled. This one up in here was actually the Spanish were were producing silver doré from this back in the 1600s. So there's lots of potential in all of these other structures as well. And then well into the future, I believe all of these types of structures will be continuing over in here, but they're all covered by younger volcanics. So you're not going to see them from surface. We would have to explore for them, try to find them from surface if possible. If not, we would likely drift across and find these veins in the future. It's very characteristic of these big epithermal systems. And in fact, the San Dimas mining district, which is in Durango, about 800 kilometers south of us, is known as this type of a district with multiple veins. That project's been in production over 100 years and produced over 10 million ounces of gold and billions of ounces of silver. So this is what we hope this district will grow into in the future. And that's why I'm very confident that this is a very long-term life of mine and excellent potential to expand the size of the mining operation. And the next slide I'm going to show you is a long section through this major structure. It gives you an idea of what the ore bodies look like. So there it is, where it's outlined in this little hashed bluish color. That is a reserve, and where it's not outlined like that, it's a resource. So you can see we have a lot of room to potentially upgrade the M&I resources into reserveless drilling. All of these ore bodies are open to depth. We haven't found the limits to mineralization to depth. Our deepest hole was in this area in here, which is about 350, 375 meters below surface. That's hit an ore grade intersection, but it's not included in the resources because it's too far away from different holes. But it tells us that the ore bodies are continuing to depth. This area we couldn't drill. We picked the zone up on the other side here. Although we couldn't drill it, we drifted in 150 meters past the last known drill hole, and we're in mineralization all the way. And in fact, that's increased our resources about 50 meters above and 50 meters below that underground tunnel. And I believe that we'll drill off this area from underground. We'll continue to extend the tunnel over to Santiago. It's about 600 to 700 meters. And we'll just drill this area from underground. And I believe that can bring in about a third new reserves to justify immediate expansion of the mine. And I believe we could do that all within 6 months' time, once we have the funding to get onto it. So again, this ore body, I believe, continues to the south underneath that rhyolite cover, probably down to the river. And that's another potentially 2.5 kilometers distance. So overall, this district going back, so there's that Cinco de Mayo zone I showed you. It likely continues under here, but we're going to have to explore it from surface. Our most northerly vein is up here, and from there to the river is 7.5 kilometers to put this district into perspective and show you the outstanding exploration potential. So I've showed you that. I'll move on now. Our plans are to ramp up our production, get the cash flows going, and then get exploring and bring in enough resources and reserves to justify a quick expansion of the mine that we're building. We move on now. We'll talk about Campo Morado. So Campo Morado is a mine we purchased from Nearstar. This mine had over $500 million invested in it, $410 million in a friendly takeover of Farallon Mining, a Hunter Dickinson company. They sold the mine to Nearstar. Nearstar put more capital in it to expand it. They bought a streaming royalty from Silver Wheaton for $25 million. They had over $500 million into this project. And zinc prices went to 80 cents, and the project wasn't making money, along with numerous other projects they purchased, and it failed. So Nearstar went into receivership. Trafigura now owns Nearstar, but we purchased this mine from Nearstar in 2017 for $20 million. It was not operating at the time. It was in care and maintenance. We put it back into production, and we've been operating more or less continuously. We had a 6-month shutdown in 2019 due to low zinc prices. Got going again in 2020, and we've had some very good success at the mine over the past year and a half. So there's the mill. The underground adits enter into the mine this way here. This is a tailings facility that's now full. However, there's a lot of metal in this tailings facility. We believe, from calculating daily production records of the amount of tailings and the grade of the tailings being deposited, that there's around 280,000 ounces of gold equivalent resources in here, just with gold and silver. Now, again, I'll stress that's not 43-101 compliant. It's based on old production records. But we know that the precious metal recoveries are strained at this deposit, and there's a lot of metal in there. And we've been doing metallurgical testing, which I'll outline in a couple more slides, that we believe we're going to get a good deal of that precious metal out of those tailings, as well as from fresh tailings into the future. Moving on to the next slide. This is our resource summary. So this is Campo Morado is a volcanogenic massive sulfide deposit. There's 7 zones that we know of so far, been drilled extensively. We're producing around, actually the last month, we've been producing more like 2,400 tons per day on average. So it's been going quite well for us. And last year in 2021, we produced just over 46 million pounds of zinc. The M&I resources here are 16.6 million tons, grading 1.7 grams per ton gold, 123 silver. Now those are good grades for a VMS deposit. In fact, they're quite high grade precious metals. Unfortunately, the deposit is tricky, the metallurgy is tricky, and we currently get about 15% of the gold recoveries, and we get 30 to 40% recoveries on silver. Some of the metallurgical testing we've been doing and was done in the past suggests that we can vastly improve that. It has 0.8% copper, 0.93 lead, and 4% zinc. In 2021, we were producing a zinc and a lead concentrate. We have just in the past 6 weeks converted the mine and are now producing a copper concentrate in place of a lead concentrate. We're getting better payables for copper concentrate based on the metal prices. So these resources give us a 20-plus year mine life at 2,200 tons per day. In 2021, our all-in sustaining costs were 83 cents per pound of zinc and 60 cents capital costs or project cost, C1 cost, project cost. That gave us a mine operating profit of just under 27 million US. That was the 35 million Canadian I showed you earlier. So those were good numbers. In Q1 2021, our costs were up a little bit because we were feeding lower grade material into the mill as well as developing into the copper zone. That's the reason for the lower grade ore. And we also had a serious breakdown. We lost a week of production due to a reductor gear on the SAG mill failing. So it took us a while to get that stabilized and back up. So not necessarily a good quarter in 2021, although we did still make a mine operating profit of about $1.25 million, when generally through 2021 on a quarter, we were making about $5 million mine operating profit. So carrying on, this is where we think we can go with Campo Morado. I believe that we have a pathway forward to increase base metal recoveries as well as precious metal recoveries. That's based on 8 months of extensive metallurgical testing that's been underway. So first off, there's near-term expansion possibilities. The former owners were building a new flotation circuit that was largely 80% complete when we purchased the mine. Now, we could bring that circuit online with a little bit of capital and some new flotation cells. However, the metallurgical testing that we've been doing looks like there's a better way to potentially increase production. And that's going with microfine grinding and pneumatic flotation. So the mill right now has mechanical flotation cells, traditional mechanical flotation cells. And when you get down to a microfine grind, those cells don't do a very good job of recovering these small particles. Apparently the small particles get slime on them and don't attach well to the reagents. So these pneumatic flotation cells, we've had 2 pilot plants on site. Nearstar had 1 pilot plant on site when they owned the mine. And the testing has shown a pathway for base metal recoveries to be increased on all metals, so zinc, lead, and copper. We've focused on the lead recoveries mostly. Nearstar focused on all of them. And we were able to duplicate what they found in their pneumatic flotation testing with the lead testing that we did with the Jameson cell. So I mentioned before, our recoveries on lead are about 30 to 40%. With this pneumatic flotation microfine grind, we showed there's a way to get that up to 40 to 60% recoveries, 60 to 80% recoveries in lead. And that would also automatically bring in a lot more silver because silver and lead are always associated together. So that's where we want to try to push. We're getting a proposal from Glencore Technologies to potentially install these pneumatic flotations. We need 3 of them in the mill and possibly need another one for the reprocessing of the tailings. And talking about the metallurgical testing on the tailings, we effectively made a precious metal rich pyrite concentrate by microfine grinding, doing a regrind on the tailings and processing it through the pneumatic flotation cell. So that is very promising, but in the sense that we will take that pyrite concentrate through to forced oxidation and leaching, and maybe we'll find a way to recover 40 to 50% of the precious metals in that tailings facility in the future. So all of those are expected to give the mine an increase in revenue, and if we're successful, then Campo Morado is not so susceptible to lower zinc prices because it will be protected from lower zinc prices from the better recoveries of the precious metals and the base metals. So that's the quick description there. And now we quickly talk about Campo Morado's exploration potential, which is really good. There's lots of near-term resource growth potential that may justify an expansion up to the doubling of the current size of the mine. That's an aggressive statement, and it would require a bit of time to get there. I would say in 5 years' time, we would be able to know with exploration and metallurgical things to see whether we could justify that expansion. But that's where we hope to take that. And talking about the exploration potential at Campo Morado, here's a couple of slides that really demonstrate it quite well. These are the ore bodies that we know of to date, extensively drilled out. Majority of the mining came from this G9 Southwest zone in the past. We've been mining this El Largo zone. We have now dewatered down in here, so we're back down there. 40% of our feed is coming from this G9 Southwest area, 60% from El Largo. We have about 2 years of ore left between those two. There's some great exploration targets with a small amount of drilling. We think we can extend this for another 2 years life. But even in and above that, there's a lot of targets that we want to test that are below our existing ore bodies. And this is quite common for VMS deposits. So the upper image, this colorful image, is a representation, geophysical representation from borehole electromagnetic geophysics. So these are all very strong electromagnetic anomalies that need to be tested. So to locate them, this one here, this red one, is the El Largo zone, so that's there. And all of these strong anomalies are coming down through this area and through here. This one under El Rey is in there. And then Nearstar actually had one down here, which is off of this image, but they drilled it and they hit a 12.5 meter intersection of very rich, massive sulfides. So we need to drill that off. We'll likely develop another ore body there, and then we'll test these from underground drilling, and we'll hopefully develop more ore bodies underneath that can be accessed from the existing underground mine workings. So lots of potential in and around our current ore bodies. If we look at a property scale, the next slide, most of those ore bodies I just showed you are in this blue ellipse. All of these are targets that were developed by Nearstar, geochemistry and or geophysics, some of them coincident. They're all drill ready. All we need to do is locate those, set up a drill and test them. And any one of these could bring in new massive sulfide ore bodies to feed the mill into the future. So that's why we believe the exploration potential is excellent at Campo Morado as well. So we'll jump into our capital market structure. We currently have trading in the 20-cent range. Our highs and lows are 18 to 80 cents in the last year. We have 78 million shares issued. Options and warrants will bring us up to 354 million shares. Our market capitalization today is about 42 million. We have been hit hard in the meltdown of the senior markets, brought down with them. We believe we'll recover fairly quickly once Tawato gets on stream at capacity. And we have working capital around $2 million. It's getting tight, but both projects are starting to cash flow. Well, Campo Morado has been cash flowing for a while, but Tahuehueto is starting to cash flow. Restricted cash. This is a story behind a Mexican bank failure where we had $3.2 million in the current account that we lost access to. but we believe we'll be able to reduce our one of the loans. We also have just over $6 million loan with that bank, and we expect to reduce it by this amount with a legal challenge that we have underway with them right now. Our loan debt is currently about $38.5 million. 28 to 29 of that is with Trafigura and Nearstar. The rest is with our major shareholder. A little bit of debt for a stream, which will be paid back in silver, not cash. And that gives us an enterprise value of around $77 million these days. So if we look at our institutional holdings, we have about 38% public float, management board of directors, 28%. Now this is going to decrease significantly with the announcement we put out this morning. Our major shareholder is restructuring his real estate assets in Mexico and will be disposing of a senior position of his stock to restructure that. And they're all of the sales of that stock will be done on an arranged basis, so they're not going to be hitting the market. They may be, a few of them may be crossed on the market, but they're not going to be fed into the market bid. There are just he's got all of the sale already arranged, filed his notice of intent to sell, and the selling should start to occur early next week. But it will be, as I say, all private transactions arranged and not a drain on the bid and ask of the trading securities. So close associates of management, we say over 11%, and institutions 23%. Institutions are Trafigura Mexico, Superlot, Global Resources, Mermacan, Gold Fund, EMA GARP. These are all funds out of New York. Antares Capital is a Mexican group. And then Ascendo Banco is the bank that failed. This bank actually owns 31.5 million shares, which they will be selling in a arranged transaction as well. They're not selling into the market, but they will, over a period of time, be doing some arranged transactions to sell that stock. We're trying to help them place a lot of that stock and we'll just get that taken care of probably over the next 2 to 3 months. They're still organizing that wholesale process. Moving on, a valuation comparison. So this is a slide that shows enterprise value over EBITDA, a common way to evaluate mining companies. So over on the left-hand side, you have Mexican polymetallic producers. Altaley trading at a ratio of 1.1, and the average here in polymetallic producers is about 11. So in here are Exelon, Gold, Endeavor, Avino, and Sierra. So we've got a lot of growth potential to make up there. And then even if you look at a junior gold producers, because Altaley will likely get a re-rating as a precious metal producer once Tawato is on full stream, because around 60% of our revenue should or is projected to come from precious metals. So here it's for averages around 4, and again we're at 1.1. So lots of room to growth and a true sense that I can confidently say as a CEO that our company is undervalued. I know everybody says that, but I can demonstrate, hopefully I've demonstrated that we are seriously undervalued at this point in time. And that's my presentation. So happy to answer your questions.
Great, thanks a lot, Ralph. So yes, we'll now turn to the Q&A portion of the webinar. And just a reminder to everybody on the line that you can type in your questions into the chat box at any time. So we have had a number come in. Some of them were asking about the news today on Roberto's disposition of his shares, but I think you covered everything on that front.
Yeah, I can elaborate a little bit more, Taylor. I mean, it's important for people to understand that this sale is going to prearrange people that are getting behind the company as well. They're buying the stock as a long-term investment, and they're likely going to be there to help us in the future if we go out to raise capital. They're very substantial investors in Mexico. So I think that overall it's probably a decent situation, an entry of new significant shareholders in the company. It will reduce Roberto's position to under a control group person. And I know the capital markets seem to like companies, let's put it this way, are hesitant to get involved in companies that have a very large shareholder, because it can sometimes influence the way the companies go. So I think overall this is going to be positive for the company. And it's important that the market understands that it's not stock going to be sold into the market at all. They're all prearranged sales.
Okay, great. Another question kind of on the corporate side, you touched on the Ascendo situation, but we have a question just wondering about the block of shares or warrants that they have. What does it say here? The warrants that Ascendo has. What do you know? Any plans for those from the?
Yeah, I can tell you very simply on the warrants. The warrants that Ascendo controls or owns were conditional upon the full loan being drawn down by Altaley. So that loan was $12.5 million. We drew $6 million. There's no way we're drawing any more of that loan from Ascendo Banco. They are in receivership and being liquidated. So those warrants will be canceled at some point in the future. I can't arbitrarily cancel them at this point in time, but you can be rest assured that the bank will not be providing any more funding to the company, so they will not solve the conditional terms of those warrants being exercised. So they will not be exercised.
Okay. And we have a question here just wondering about the loan agreement with Sale Natural Resources, the $5 million loan facility. How's your current standing with that entity is the question.
Sure. The sale has provided us about $2.3 million, and then we're not able to provide any more. And that's why we went out and conducted the $5 million private placement. So, that loan is earning interest. And it is, will be paid back out of cash flows as the mines ramp up and the company starts paying down the debt. And we've been meeting our interest payments to the various groups and principal payments, although we did get a 3-month extension on principal from Trafigura on a waiver to help us get through the little working capital deficiency we had because of the delays of getting Tahuehueto up and running. So, basically the sale loan will be serviced as we move forward.
Okay, and with that, I guess the follow-up question on that, just to reiterate, Tawato is fully funded to finalize that construction, correct?
So we're short on working capital, but we're hopeful we can stick handle this thing through and get it up and running. Cash flows are starting now, so it's helping. I can't guarantee that we won't need a small amount of capital, but hopefully we won't have to raise any more capital.
Okay.
A lot of that, just to clarify too, a lot of that was dependent on Campo Morado, because we've been able in the past to get a decent amount of money out of the operating profit at Campo Morado to help subsidize the construction at Tahuehueto. Unfortunately, Q1 didn't work out as well as we'd hoped on Campo Morado, which did not provide any money through that period of time. We are back to starting to take a little bit of money from Campo Morado as well now, so it's helping.
Okay, and I guess on that front with Campo, you mentioned that kind of as per your kind of last financials that came out, the operational issues there have been solved, and things are kind of looking better for the rest of the year. Maybe just can you expand on that a little bit? Just kind of remind everybody what the issues were in Q1 and kind of how it's now.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was one of those quarters where a lot of things conspired against us. First off, I think the major issue is the mechanical breakdown of the reductor gear. So we had a couple in the spares, and they were installed but didn't work properly. So it was a combination of problems. It took us about 6-7 days to correct it and get the mine back up operating properly. So that was lost time. At the same time, because we were moving the mill towards producing a copper concentrate, we were developing into the area for feeding higher grade copper ore. And in doing that, we were feeding lower grade material to get to the higher grade copper zone. So that brought down the recoveries and the payabilities. So it was just one of those quarters, although we still made $1.25 million operating profit during the quarter, it didn't bring in the typical $5 million more or less that we were earning on a quarterly basis the previous year. So, we believe that the majority of those issues have been solved. We are back producing. In fact, the mine has been producing very well, and we've had our throughput production up to, the 2,400 tons per day. We actually hit over 2,600 tons per day one day. So it's been performing very well throughout this month. June has performed excellent. And so we expect we'll be bringing the company back to its profitable situation, or more profitable situation that we experienced last year. In addition to that, we're now producing copper concentrate, which is paying better than the lead concentrate that we were producing last year. So we're hoping for a little bit of a kick on the upside with that as well.
Okay, great. We have a question kind of along those lines, just wondering about improvements on the TCs and RCs for the that have affected operating margin. I guess, is there any comment?
Yeah, I can give you a little bit of background on that. So, one of our offtake agreements with Trafigura, the TCs, they're all set on an annual basis. Where one thing that isn't set is what they have termed as an escalator clause, which they have in their offtake agreement, so that when prices of metals go up drastically, Trafigura gets a little bit more of that due to that escalator clause. So as zinc performed very, very well over the past, all through the beginning of this year, our escalator clauses in the first quarter were reasonably high. Although they took more money, obviously we're making more money with the better prices as well, but it brought up our costs. In fact, 50% of the costs increase associated in Q1 were largely due to that escalator clause. Again, I stress, we're making more money. Trafigura is making more money. Trafigura is taking a little bit more proportionate of the TCs on the escalator clause when the prices are up. So that goes up and down when the prices of the metal starts falling off. That escalator amount comes off as well. So what we were paying when zinc was at $1.90, hit $2. That escalator clause is much less at the current prices of zinc at the dollar. I think we're at the $1.60 level right now. Preferably, I still like to be paying those higher costs. I wouldn't like to pay them at all, but because they're in our offtake agreement, I still would like to pay them, because then zinc would be at $2 a pound and we'd be making more money ourselves. However, that's the best description I can give you of those TC clauses, or the charges we have, off-taker charges to Trafigura.
Okay, great. So let's turn a little bit to something you mentioned in the presentation. You kind of outlined the strategy, and the focus going forward is to really, finish this ramp up at Tahuehueto and then really hit the exploration. Is that kind of, the approach that you're going to be focusing on once Tahuehueto is up and running, is really hitting that exploration hard, or are you going to also be potentially looking at M&A or?
I think it's going to be a combination of both. But I mean, the fastest way to grow Tahuehueto is get the drills turning again. And as I showed in the presentation, I think with a six months drill program, underground development drilling along that area between those two zones should give us another third to our reserves, and that can justify an immediate expansion. And we could start to engineer and plan and start acquiring equipment to expand this mine to the 1,500, 2,000 ton level as fast as possible. And I think we can do that within 2 years' time. Again, it's going to take exploration success, but it should come very easy at Tahuehueto. There's so many targets, and we know the geology very well. We know the mineralization, and I think it's going to be an easy thing to do. A similar situation at Campo Morado is we believe we can bring in new resources and reserves there, although we still have a lot of ore bodies to mine. The key there is to get the metallurgy solved and start to recover better levels of base metals as well as precious metals. And I believe we have the pathway to do that. It's just a matter of a bit more time to get the final testing of the forced oxidation and leaching completed, which is in process now, and that would give us the pathway to increase base or precious metals. We already have the pathway to increase the base metals based on the pneumatic flotation. So, we think we have the pathway forward, and it's a matter of getting funding in place to acquire the equipment we would need in order to improve the mill to start those recoveries.
Great. Okay. We have another question here that I missed earlier. Just wondering if you've hedged any of your zinc production.
No, we have not. We were hedging our zinc production out 3 months, a short hedge. But at this point in time, we're not. One of the difficulties of hedging zinc at Campo Morado is just the metallurgy. I mean, we can hedge out to a couple of the ore bodies where we have our plans in place, but until we've perfected some of the metallurgy on some of these other ore bodies, we can't really give a life of mine plan that a hedger would rely on to give us the hedges. So, we've discussed it many times. It's a possibility to do some hedging on a short-term basis, 6 months to a year. But I think at this point we're comfortable with the prices of zinc and the market of the zinc to hold off for a period of time before we did that. And perfecting our life of mine plan is key in order to get the best hedges possible.
Okay, great. So maybe, just before we wrap up here, if you could kind of sum up, outline key catalysts for investors, maybe any, things that you'll be focusing on to kind of avoid any challenges coming up over the next year, or, anything that you want to highlight for investors would be great.
Yeah, I guess, the key deliverables over the next little while are obviously Tahuehueto, getting it ramped up. First is getting this 500 ton per day ball mill ramped up to its capacity, and we're almost there. We have a provisional crusher right now we're producing about 350 tons per day. So the mill is producing. Once the main crushing circuit is completed, it should be in the next week to 10 days, then we'll be able to ramp that 500 ton ball mill up to capacity. And then it's a matter of installing the second ball mill over the coming quarter, ramping up to 1,000 tons per day towards the Q4 and near the end of the year. That should really, really help the company. And for example, at Tawato, just with the first ball mill, once it's running to capacity, our projections show that the mine will be cash flow positive within 3 months of reaching the throughput capacity of the first ball mill. So lots of good things coming from there. At Campo Morado, the metallurgical testing, we expect to be starting to put out some press releases on the results we're getting there very soon, continuing to just move the company forward. Then we're going to have, obviously, our quarters coming in on an ongoing basis. So the news flow should be fairly extensive and fairly lots of news flow throughout the rest of this year.
Perfect. So with that, I think we'll leave it there. So I'd like to thank Ralph from Altaley Mining for taking the time today to host the webinar with Red Cloud Securities, and thank you to everybody for tuning in with us.